Hi everyone. Just before we dive into the episode, here's a trailer from a fellow podcaster. So if you like what you hear, go and check it out.
Fact: over 700 people have been killed by the hands of the police just this year alone. I'm Katherine Sheffield, host of the weekly podcast A Few Bad Apples. Each week, I unravel true stories of victims whose lives have been affected by bad apple officers of the law. I bring this relevant conversation into the public spotlight because it's a way to provoke change and reform. Not all officers are bad, and in fact, I highlight a positive story at the end of every episode to balance the spectrum. A Few Bad Apples is available wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello and welcome to Crime Divers. I'm Jill.
And I'm Laura.
Join us today as we dive into the episode of Murder in the Lane. Back everybody.
Hello.
So today we have a wee treat for you. It's going to be a lot of sods, so you've got a break from my voice.
Yay.
So I'm just going to dive right in it and I'm going to hand you over to Laura for our second Laura sode.
Yes, so this episode is called Murder in the Lane.
Okay.
And actually this is thanks to my husband that we're doing this one today, because he was the one that told me about it.
Alright.
Because I had never heard of it before.
Cool. Thanks, Justin.
I know, thanks. So if it's rubbish, it's him to blame.
Right, okay, so maybe not thanks, Justin. If I don't like it, you're the one who's going to get the blame for it.
But to be fair, as I did it, it is, it's fairly interesting. So,
alright, okay, I'm looking forward to it then.
Yeah, so I'm going to start off with a little quote from the a police officer, which he quoted as saying, so his name was the Detective Superintendent Dibley.
Dibley?
Yes.
Like as in the vicar?
Yes.
Vicar of Dibley.
No relation to Vicar of Dibley, but that was his name. And he quoted, was saying, as far as murders go, you don't get any more serious than this.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that was his quote.
That sounds quite bad then.
Yeah, so do you want to hear it?
Let's go.
Let's dive in.
Yeah.
Okay, so on the 6th of December 1995, so not too long ago,
Yeah.
there were three men named Craig Rolfe, Tony Tucker and Pat Tate. They were brutally murdered inside a Range Rover on a quiet country lane in a place called Rettington. I think that's how you pronounce it.
Rettington.
Rettington.
Where's that?
In Essex.
Oh, right,
England.
Okay.
So to be fair, my husband is from down
Yeah.
that way, so this is how he
I was just going to say that. That's how
Yes.
he's heard about it then. It's
That's
from down his way.
Yeah, from his neck of the woods. So he said it was quite a big story down there
Right.
at the time.
So in 1995, he would have been 21? No, 19.
Yeah.
Yeah, so right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he said it was quite a big story back then. So he was quite. He wanted me to do this one basically.
Right.
He was like, "Oh, you have to do this."
So once we're finished, we've got to say, you happy now?
Yeah, basically. So basically, all three of them were blasted by a shotgun from close range. They lay covered in blood and slumped in the vehicle until they were discovered by two farmers the next morning.
Ugh, that would have been a horrible discovery.
Exactly. The victims were actually known to be part of what they call the Essex Boys drug gang.
Alright.
So, paint the picture, it's just a gang
Yeah.
kind of murder. And actually, for anybody that is interested, there was a film based on this called Essex Boys.
I was just going to say, actually, when you said the Essex Boys, I thought, I've heard of the Essex Boys. Is that a thing? Like,
Yeah,
so
it was,
that's maybe why I've heard of it.
loosely based on it, that came out in 2000, and it starred Sean Bean.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I haven't seen it, but it definitely rings a
I haven't
bell.
watched the film either, but after this, I think I'm going to go watch it.
Yeah,
Just to see.
I've definitely heard of it anyway.
So that was a wee interesting fact for you.
And Sean Bean, he's a good actor,
Yeah.
so.
There was a few other names in it, but he was like one of the starring roles. There was actually Larry Lamb. Anybody knows him?
Oh, I love Larry Lamb.
Yes, from
Gavin and Stacey and EastEnders.
For anybody from the UK, you will know they're quite big shows.
I love Larry Lamb.
Yeah, so he was in it. I'm not sure what part he did play, but he was in it. So.
Oh well, maybe I'm gonna have to watch it as well then.
No, but there you go. So, Numerous theories were formed on how they came to be shot 8 times in a peaceful Essex village. So I don't think there had been much happened in those parts before.
Yeah, if it's like a kind of countryside.
Yeah, basically. So yeah. Right from the start, it was clear that this was no ordinary murder. Essex police launched an investigation when the 3 men were found dead on Workhouse Lane on the morning of December the 7th, 1995. So they actually were murdered on the 6th of December, but their bodies weren't discovered.
Yeah, they weren't found until the next day.
Following morning. They had been alerted at around 8 a.m. by a farmer who saw the bodies on a track just off the A130, which obviously is a road in Essex.
Obviously.
Plenty of traffic going past there, so unbeknownst to people, there's been a murder and
God.
probably hundreds of thousands of commuters have passed it, not aware of what has happened.
You sounded like Taggart there.
Did I?
There's been a murder.
There's been a murder. My nice Scottish accent there. So as I said, all 3 had been blasted with a shotgun. The police said the victims were all white and aged between 20 and 40.
Right.
Detective Superintendent Ian Dibley led the murder investigation, and the early theory was that the men had died as a result of gangland reprisal. So if you don't know what gangland reprisal is...
Alright, no, I don't know what it is.
That means an act of retaliation.
Alright, okay.
Because I didn't know what that meant.
Right. So you had to look it up, did you?
Yes, I did. There you go.
I've never heard of that before, so... Because, I don't know anything about gangs.
No. Neither did I really. I'm not really into gangs and stuff.
Well, thank God for that.
Okay.
I'm not really into gangs.
Yeah. I mean, you know what I mean. I'm not obviously part of a gang. Never have been part of a gang. I just don't take much notice of gang stuff.
Well, I don't know any gangs. Do you?
Well, I don't know any gangs specifically, but you hear on the news and stuff about gang wars and...
Yeah, I suppose.
Stuff like that, maybe, I don't know. Anyway, moving on. So, as I was saying, thousands of early morning commuters would have driven past the scene totally unaware of the grisly discoveries just 400 yards down the snow-covered lane, because it was a bit snowy at that time.
Right. Oh, it was December, wasn't
Yes,
it?
It was December,
Yeah.
so there was actually a bit of snow. Might have been a white Christmas, you never know. Don't get
Probably not.
No, probably
Well,
not.
maybe.
Maybe, I don't know. Don't really get that these days. Anyway, detectives initially checked whether more than one shotgun had been used, indicating more than one killer, or whether a pump-action weapon had been fired just by one person.
Right,
so they
yeah.
weren't sure at this point whether it had been multiple killers
Or
if it
just,
had
yeah.
been one killer. The Range Rover they found in was metallic blue, and the police have been unable to trace the owner in the early stages, so the police appealed for anyone who had any info about the vehicle to come forward.
Yeah.
And they did say whoever was involved clearly had knowledge of the local area, because I actually looked this up on a map, because I had a little... the place that they were found near was a place called White House Farm, which...
White House Farm?
Yeah, so I don't know if you know, but that's linked to another major murder.
Yeah.
We may well cover it down the line, but actually it's not the same White House Farm.
Ah, okay.
So actually, because I looked up on a map just to
Right.
sort of gauge it and find out, so there must be a different White House Farm. But... there's like a lot of like farmland around there, like country lanes.
Yeah.
So, you'd have to know the area quite well.
Right,
to,
okay.
For it to have taken place there.
Right.
So the murder scene itself was described as carnage. There were 2 bodies in the front of the car and 1 in the back. And 1 window had been shot out from the outside.
Right.
So that was the scene that the detective said, well, I suppose the 2 men that actually later found them stumbled upon. Detectives started working on a theory that the men were enticed down the quiet lane and then blasted to death, but hadn't ruled out the possibility that 2 had been murdered and then the 3rd had killed himself. So again, at this point, they thought, maybe one of them had...
Oh, so maybe one of them was the murderer, right.
Yeah, but they weren't sure at that point, but they had that theory. They tried to determine if they'd all been shot by the same shotgun as well. So this was like the early theories going on. It was local farmers Peter Theobald and Ken Jiggins who came across the Range Rover.
Ken Jiggins.
Random name, but yeah, that was his name. They said that the men inside looked peaceful and that they actually looked like they could have been asleep.
Really? After they'd been shot?
Yeah, so... It was,
where were they shot? Like, what part of their body?
Do
you not know?
No, I don't know.
No,
I
just...
don't think I actually ever said what part of the body, to be honest, when I was...
It's just, it seems a weird thing to say, like they look like they're sleeping and they look peaceful after being shot, so...
I mean, maybe it was from a distance, I guess, because it does say that it was only when they tried to wake them by tapping on the window that the reality of the situation actually dawned on them. So they must have been, I guess, seeing from a distance, walking up to the Range Rover, wondering why these it's just parked there. And so maybe initially, I mean, Range Rovers, I mean, the windows might be tinted, maybe. I mean, they might not be quite clear.
But the wounds mustn't have been very visible then.
Yeah.
Because you would have thought there'd be blood everywhere and stuff.
Yeah, well, there's more about that, so...
Sorry.
But yeah, so that was, they thought they were asleep.
Right, okay.
And Ken Jiggins actually told the Chronicle newspaper, which is the local newspaper down there, quote, "It looked for all the world as if they were asleep. It was only when we looked more closely that we realised they had been shot. There was no sign of struggle at all," end quote.
Alright.
So, clearly...
I still like his name though, Jiggins.
I know. The two farmers had been on their way to feed pheasants on White House Farm.
Which isn't the
one that
not the one that we know, yeah.
And that was owned by Peter Theobald at the time. And that's when they found the Range Rover blocking the narrow entrance road. Yeah. The lane actually had a reputation linked with crime, so it wasn't the first time that something had happened in that lane.
Okay. So it's not really a quiet country lane then.
It's really not. But a hijacked lorry was taken there 6 years earlier. There was safes found and burnt out cars had also been found there. So there'd obviously been some criminal activity previously.
Yeah, that must be a place.
But then, I mean, looking on the map that I looked at, I mean, it doesn't look anything special or any reason why. I guess it's just a bit, there's not much around it, as I say, because it's just like sort of farmland. And
well, that's maybe why then, because it's in the middle of nowhere.
Basically. So in the week following the murders, more info came to light regarding the three victims and their criminal past. So the Chronicle newspaper reported that they met their deaths as a result of a power struggle in the murky world of drugs.
Ooh.
So basically they think at this point it was all drug related.
Right, yeah.
Why they had been shot. The three men had actually never been convicted of any drug offences though.
Right.
But Essex Police intelligence revealed that they were well known in the criminal circuit as quite high up dealers.
Alright.
They had been convicted of other offences, which were armed robbery, vehicle theft, and there were other minor offences along the way. It was the lure of easier money and plenty of it, which clearly led them to the drugs side of it, and eventually to their deaths.
Mm-hmm.
So they weren't. It's quite fascinating to know that they weren't, because they were quite big in the drug world, they weren't actually convicted of anything to do with drugs. So
I suppose if they can only be convicted if they get caught, if there's evidence. So it's one thing being known, but to actually catch them and have the evidence to convict them is a different thing, isn't it?
Yeah, this is true. It was revealed that Rolfe's girlfriend Donna, let's say Jaggers, Donna Jaggers, I think that's how it's pronounced, I don't know. She was actually due to meet him for dinner at about 8 PM on the night of the murders, and he'd last actually been seen at 6 PM. But sometime that night, the Range Rover had been driven along Workhouse Lane towards White House Farm, and
so they not turned up for dinner.
So he basically didn't turn up for dinner, no. So that was, but the last time he was seen was 6 o'clock that night.
Right.
It didn't say who by or whatever, but he was sighted alive at that point. So sometime between 6 o'clock and I'm assuming 8 o'clock, because he didn't turn up for dinner. That must have been when it actually happened. According to the police, the victims were not wearing seatbelts, but neither was there any sign of a struggle. So
So they were just caught by surprise then?
Well, I don't know, because it says that it said although they had presumably realised their fate, so they actually think that they must have realised what was about to happen at some point after driving down that lane.
Okay. I just wonder if they knew their fate, why was there not a struggle then?
I don't know, it must have happened quite quick.
Unless, I suppose, if somebody's holding a gun at your head or something or whatever, then...
Yeah, not really, and if you're stuck in the car, there's not really
much
a manoeuvre to run away or to even get to maybe the killer, because if they're shot from outside, the killer's also outside the car and you're in the car, there's not really much room for them to go, is there? So,
yeah, I suppose without knowing exactly what happened.
Yeah,
then.
Exactly. So at this point it was believed that they could have known their killer or killers and were probably not driven down at gunpoint. So they reckon they weren't actually driven down the lane at gunpoint. So they think that they were led down there for another reason.
Right. I was just going to say, well, why were they down there?
Knowingly thinking that they were meeting for some other reason.
So they maybe thought it was a drug deal and...
Yeah,
right,
okay.
Yeah.
So that's what they're saying anyway. It was also revealed that an attempt had actually been made on Tate's life the year before, and he'd actually been shot in his home. Clearly not died at that point, but he had been previously shot at his house.
Oh, God.
So clearly I don't know.
What a dangerous life.
I know, I was going to say, not that I've been in the drugs world, but you must be living on edge quite a lot.
Yeah, like, see, this is why you shouldn't do drugs.
Exactly.
And don't deal drugs, don't do drugs, just don't have anything to do with drugs, because...
I know, because clearly there is always a power struggle to be like the top dog, and if you get on the wrong side of somebody, then, clearly they don't think twice about ending your life.
I know, I just don't understand why people get into that world.
I know.
Like, it's
cash, but yeah.
I get that, like, obviously, like, money-wise, but I just think to myself, no, it's just not worth it.
No, I mean, there's always a chance it's going to result in, not necessarily, I mean, you might not die or whatever, but you could die, or you could
end up in jail.
Or you could get beaten up quite badly,
or
tortured, or anything. I mean,
it's not a world that I just don't think. Like, I just don't see apart from money, I don't see what the appeal is, and if money isn't
beyond end all.
Exactly, like I just think, how can you be happy when you're constantly looking over your shoulder and...
Exactly, yeah. Because even in things that I've read before, I mean, you can have, like, your closest of friends that you think have got your back, and then, they've not really got your back.
Yeah, exactly. You just, when it comes to that sort of world with drugs and stuff, you just never know. I don't think you'd be able to trust anybody.
No, definitely not. So, no. Wouldn't be me anyway.
Me neither.
So it was actually more than 2 years after the actual killings that they eventually did charge 2 men for it.
Oh.
They were charged and convicted of murder, and they were 36-year-old Jack Holmes, I think that's pronounced, and 55-year-old Michael Steele. They were labelled as executioners.
Ooh.
2 men were found guilty of blasting the 3 drug dealers to death. They both received 3 life sentences with a minimum of 15 years. Addressing the 2 men, Mr. Justice Hidding said, quote, There is little that can be said usefully to either of you at this stage. You 2 men were responsible, in my view, for taking away their lives in a violent and summary way. You lured them to a quiet farm track and executed them. End quote. And at that point, apparently, the both men interrupted the judge by saying, No way, no way.
Okay.
They weren't accepting that's what happened. Mr. Justice Hidding then added, quote, They have crossed your path and you have showed them no mercy. The fact that they were criminals involved in drugs meant they were subject to criminal law, but not sadly to their lives being ended in this way. End quote. So he was basically saying they needed to be brought to justice for their other criminal activity, but they still didn't deserve to die.
Fair enough, yeah.
Which is fair.
Yeah.
To be fair, they didn't deserve to die.
Yeah.
They deserved to be convicted of...
Yeah, I mean, you can, like, just because you're a criminal doesn't mean you say you deserve to die.
Exactly. So I thought that was quite good. Which, but then what I found annoying, for some reason, Holmes, he actually had his sentence reduced because of his exemplary behaviour, and apparently he's now He's now able to apply for parole this year.
So how long has he been in for then?
Since 1997. So what's that? We're
23 years.
Yeah. So he's now allowed to apply for parole.
I suppose because he said the minimum of 15.
Yeah.
So.
But I don't know. I don't know. 20 years is a long time, but.
Yeah. Well, here we say how long people should get for.
Yeah, basically. So yeah. So it was only because of a man named Darren Nichols, who was a driver and general handyman for Steele. So that was one of the guys that were convicted. That the investigation into the murder had actually been able to progress. So he was basically the man that he told them what happened. Basically, that was how they found out what happened. So he kind of grasped on.
He was a snitch.
Pretty much, yeah.
So should he not be scared for his life then?
Well, Nichols, he had actually driven the killers from Rettendon. I can't say the word Rettendon. Apparently believing they were going on a reconnaissance involving drugs. So he had actually driven the 2 men that killed the other guys to them, thinking that they were going to meet up for a drug deal.
So he didn't know that they were going to shoot them?
No,
right.
He didn't know they were going to shoot them. Holmes was apparently wearing blood-stained white surgical gloves and overalls, and also the guns that they used were dismantled, and the killers were actually amused that Steele's shotgun had fallen apart. So after they'd done their deed, obviously they're covered in blood, and they were laughing because the shotgun had fell apart.
Oh,
so
that's not nice.
It's quite mature. Steele had also allegedly told Nichols that he felt like an angel of death and said he felt like he had done everyone a favour.
Really?
Yeah, so I'm assuming these other guys, they must have become not liked maybe, or...
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Too powerful, and that's why these guys basically done everybody a favour.
Okay.
But after giving evidence, Nichols actually was handed a new identity and moved address. We don't know whether he went abroad or in the UK somewhere, but he was given a new identity for evidence.
Yeah, I was good because, you know, like snitches.
Yeah. As far as I'm aware, I mean, I couldn't find anything on him, so I'm assuming that
he's
okay.
Yeah.
He moved away and
nobody knows where he is or who he is. Yeah.
So yeah. But also, so yet again, the drugs did become a key factor into how the three men met their fate. So it was actually believed that there could have been a link between the murders and £500,000 worth of cannabis, and it was actually the cannabis was actually found in a farmer's pond. The cannabis was discovered in 53 black bags or black packets. It had reportedly been dropped from an aircraft.
So was it like really secure, like because it wouldn't be wet?
Well, I don't know if you've ever. I mean, I've seen pictures and films and stuff of how they sort of wrap drugs up, and it's like normally like.
So it's waterproof then?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So basically, they had been dropped off by a plane, just like we.
Like on GTA.
Like Grand Theft Auto, yes, the computer game, yes.
Yes, we like GTA and we drop drugs and
only in game, only when we're playing that. But
so that's actually how Laura knows the stuff about drugs from playing GTA.
Basically, yeah. But they were found about 22 months before the convictions, so that was before the murders as well. Cause 2 years for the that would have been after the murders. Sorry, round about the time of the murders because they were convicted 2 years afterwards. So yeah.
Yeah.
And so that was a strong link between that because again Justin asked me about that. He's like, oh, what about the drugs in the pond, and I was like, what drugs in the pond? I hadn't got to that part yet.
I'm telling you, he should have done this. Should have just got him to do the podcast.
Exactly. But apparently there was a link. I don't know whether if it was 100% confirmed that was the reason why they had been murdered, but there was some sort of belief that was something to do with these drugs.
Well, that's a lot of drugs of it. What was it, 500,000
worth of cannabis, so yeah.
That's a lot.
Quite a lot of drugs, yeah. But there was also a strong belief that Tate, an 18-stone bodybuilder who took various drugs, basically he took the drugs and it was the purpose for the murder because he was, big guy and was into drugs and he wanted to be like the big man.
Okay.
So he also didn't like the fact that these three men were getting this amount of drugs and...
Right. So the people that killed them, were they actually, like, involved, or were they just hitmen?
No, I think, they were sort of like into drugs and the gangs themselves. I don't really know what part they were, but I think they obviously just seen them as too big for their boots and wanted to... Like a power struggle, basically.
I just wondered if they'd maybe been ordered...
and there was no saying that they had took any orders off anybody to do it, so I think they had just taken it upon themselves to do it.
Right, okay.
I didn't find anything to say that they had, so I'm assuming they just thought, you know what?
They're too big for their boots, we're going to get rid of them.
Basically, yeah, that was what it was. But apparently, so there was more on to that, but basically he had fallen out with Steele when the 55-year-old had apparently imported poor quality cannabis. So there you go, sorry, I've changed that. I think Steele must have worked for Tate, because Tate was one of the guys that had been murdered.
Right.
And he had fallen out with Steele after apparently importing poor quality cannabis.
Right, okay.
So according to reports, Tate had threatened to make Steele beg for his forgiveness on his knees and then kill him. But Holmes and Steele's got there first. So I had actually forgotten that. So,
right, okay.
So basically, to round some of that up, because I think I've just mucked that up a bit, but Tate was the 18-stone bodybuilder, so he was one of the ones that got murdered, so he was obviously one of the bigger ones. And he had fallen out with Steele because he must have asked them to get some drugs for him and he'd imported poor quality drugs.
Right. And
then he threatened Steele, and basically Steele's like, no, I'm not having any of that. So basically, I'm not going to get killed, so I'm going to kill you first.
Right. Okay.
Sorry, I totally forgot that's how it went.
I'm easily confused as well, remember.
Yeah. So basically Steele and Holmes, they decide, well, you're not going to well, you're not going to kill me, steal the guy. You're not going to kill me, so I'm going to kill you.
I'm going to kill you first, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, so they were lured to Workhouse Lane, where they believed they would learn about a cocaine consignment, but instead they were murdered. So that's why they had been lured down there, because they actually thought they were going to find out about some cocaine deal.
Right, so they actually went down there willingly.
Yeah, willingly, thinking that, we're going to find out about a deal, but instead they were murdered.
Oh, that's bad. I mean, like, I know they're criminals, but still.
Yeah.
But then again, I mean, we don't actually know what they've done in the past, do we?
No, well, exactly.
But then, no, you still just don't go murder somebody.
No.
You just don't do that, do you?
Unfortunately, that is if you get yourself into gangs and drugs and stuff, I guess there's always a possibility that
and surely you must know that as well. Like, when you're getting into this, like, surely you must know that
you're not untouchable.
Yeah.
Really. But so that is the story of the murder in Lane.
So what about the other guy?
Are you still in jail?
So so can he apply for parole, or
no,
is it just the one?
He's obviously not been behaving as well, because the other guys, because of his exemplary behaviour, it doesn't say anything about the other guy other than he is still serving his sentence, so he's obviously not available for parole.
Right.
But yeah, so...
Well, at least they got caught.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like I say, it took them 2 years to actually get it, but it was only because of the guy that snitched on them, really, that I think they really found out what...
Well, I really hope that he's alright.
Yeah, I mean, but then you don't know what part he played. I mean, I know they said he was just a driver and a general handyman, so I mean, I don't necessarily think he was part of like a criminal gang or anything by the sounds of it. He maybe just was friends with him and helped him out a bit by the sounds of it. But, I mean,
you just don't know, do you? We don't know anything about gangs. We don't know what people do there, and
exactly. So
I still think, like, no matter what though, you no matter what somebody's done, you don't take matters. I know they do in gangs, and it's like power struggles and all that kind of stuff, but in my head, my eyes, it's like, no, you're not God. You can't just go and take lives, you know what I mean? Like,
I know, it just shows you what a risky business it is, I think, to get involved in that. I mean, even if you're at the top of the chain of that, you've probably still got to watch your back.
Nobody is untouchable.
No, definitely not. I mean, I've heard of plenty of, people that are, to do with drugs that have been shot and...
What, in GTA?
Not in GTA, in real life. It's not all about computer games. They're real life things.
Well, in my experience it is, when it comes to criminal stuff, when it comes to murder and drugs and all that, in my life it's GTA. It's computer games.
Yeah, I know.
Because I don't know about stuff.
Well, no, but I just, you just see like news reports and that about so-and-so's been murdered.
Yeah.
And what have you. Especially up in Scotland and Glasgow, there's quite a lot of gangland murders that I've heard of over the years where drug dealers have been shot. I mean, I'm sure there was one a few years ago. Yeah, it was like in an Asda car park, maybe.
Was it?
This guy had just been in the driver's seat. Somebody had come up to him and just shot him in the head, and that was it. I mean, and it was all to do with drugs. All to do with drugs, as you know,
so that should be a lesson to people. Don't get involved with drugs.
Don't get involved in drugs. It's not worth it.
Oh well, so well done. So thanks, Justin.
Yes, thanks for that episode, or that idea for the episode.
Yeah, like that's all he did. It was just the idea.
Yeah.
That's all he's getting the credit for.
I did enjoy doing it. I mean, it's not like there's not a lot to it, I suppose. The episode.
Yeah, it's a bit shorter.
Yeah, but I find it quite interesting.
Well, it's good to have a little bit of different. It's not something that we've covered so far, so no.
It was a bit different,
and it's not something that I'd thought about covering. I like anything to do with gangs either. So so well done.
No, but I already have my idea for my next episode.
Oh well, stay tuned, everybody.
It'll be coming sometime in the near future.
Yeah, it'll be coming sometime. Okay.
But that one's quite. There's more to that one. That one's quite a.
So that's a bigger one.
Yes. And some of the things that I've read about it, I'm like, really? You did that? Why?
Well, I'll be looking forward to hearing about that one then.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you want to follow us on Instagram or Twitter, we are
crime_divers_pod.
If you want to join our Facebook page, we are Crime Divers Podcast. And if you want to email us, we are crime_divers_pod@outlook.com. Yeah, and we now have a Patreon page, so you just search for Crime Divers on there. Or on YouTube, we are Crime Divers, which is one word.
Yes, Crime Divers.
I think that's everything, yeah, it'll be in the show notes anyway.
I know. We are all over the social media now, so
yeah, so you'll find us somewhere.
Exactly.
So, and if anybody has any suggestions for any UK cases they want us to cover,
as you can tell, we're willing to take them on.
Yep, just let us know.
Exactly.
So thanks for listening, and we'll be back next week.
Tune in again next week.
Bye.